Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jessica
We're just
and
going to give it a hi, Govinda. We're going to just give it a minute or two because we're letting people in early just to let everyone else join, and then we'll get started.
Morning, Mindheart. Good to see you. Can't hear you on mute.
Hi, Pia. Hi, Jessica. Nice
Hi,
to see
Amanda.
you. Looking forward to today and tomorrow and the weeks to come, because in Tanzania we've managed to get the government somewhat on board, and they hope to
Great.
do something between April and June, because they are running late with their preparations. But at least there's some attention to the topic.
That's fantastic.
Great. There's no harm in spreading it out across the year. Celebrate for a few months.
That's what I would think. Yeah, it gives us a little bit
Yeah.
more time to do advocacy as well and awareness.
Yeah, fantastic. I think quite a few organizations are celebrating kind of towards the end of the month or another point in the year just to kind of fit it in around what they're doing. So
Well, and it's also the end of Ramadan, more or less
yeah,
around
of course.
time. So we actually postponed our main day to Monday for that reason.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, I think we'll get started. I'm sure people will continue to join as we get going, but we've got quite a lot to get through. We've got some really great speakers, so in the interest of time, we'll get started. My name is Jess. I'm the Senior Officer for Network Partnerships and Programs at CSC. And today's Insight series is looking at International Day for Street Children, which is taking place tomorrow. On the 12th of April, but as we've just heard, probably taking place throughout April and the following months, which is really fantastic. Just a couple of quick points before we get started. So you probably would have seen that the session's being recorded. So we'll be able to share the recording with everybody that's here, in case you lose internet connection or need to leave. And for anyone that's registered, we'll send that out. And we'll also send it out in our network update for IDSC going out tomorrow. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself or ask any questions that you have. That you'll be invited to ask questions by the speakers, so you can just raise your hand and unmute yourself if you want to ask your question, or put it in the chat box, either's fine. Please just remember to have your microphone muted when you're not speaking, just so we can make sure that we can hear all of the speakers. And just a final point, less of a housekeeping point, but more of just something from me. If you haven't already, please do share your plans for IDSC. I'll put my contact details in the chat box. We've already had lots coming in, but it's always really lovely to hear. So feel free to share those in the chat box as well, so others can see what you're doing. So I said tomorrow is the 12th of April, which marks this year's International Day for Street Children. And the theme this year is on belonging, which I think you can probably see in the background of Ishika's screen, the theme for belonging this year. So it's really a time for us to kind of celebrate the strength and resilience of street connected children globally, to highlight all of the amazing work that's taking place by organisations supporting street connected children both inside and outside of the CSC network. I can see lots of names I recognise in the participants, but a few that are from organisations externally, which is really wonderful to see as well. It's an opportunity for us to come together, organisations and individuals working with street connected children, to engage their local communities with ideas and actions to improve street connected children's sense of belonging, which is what we'll be talking about today, to challenge myths and stigma by highlighting the universal desire to belong and all of the kind of very diverse ways in which street connected children, like any other group, might define this and find a sense of belonging for themselves. And lastly, to highlight the responsibilities of governments and communities and duty bearers in ensuring street connected children feel as though they do belong in their communities. So that's kind of just a bit about the theme and what we wanted to achieve this year through the International Day. As I said before, it's so nice for us to see all of the activities taking place. It's always so broad, from kind of art exhibitions, drama shows, community dialogues, exchanges with stakeholders. The list goes on, and this year has been no exception. So we've been highlighting all of that on our webpage when we've been receiving plans that people are doing. We've got some great speakers today. We've got Boki Achola, who's the director of Glad's House in Kenya. We've got Isika Shaw, who's one of the street champions being supported by Cine in Kolkata in India. Mia Dambak, who's the executive director at Child Identity Protection, who's going to speak briefly later on about legal ID. And then Pia McRae, our chief exec, who's going to be facilitating a Q&A at the end of the session. So an opportunity to ask any questions to the speakers at the end. And just before handing over to Boki, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a bit more overview of the theme and how we kind of came up with the key messages for this year. So when we were planning for this year's campaign back in January, we wanted to make sure that the theme and the messaging were really rooted in street-connected children's voices and experiences, and would highlight what's important to them and what they want to achieve through campaigning on the day. So in January, we shared a focus group discussion template with the network, which was just a resource that people could use to run small focus group discussions on the theme of belonging. And we received some incredible, feedback from the focus group discussions from countries all across the world. And that's what we really based the key messages on for the campaign this year, the feedback and the outputs that we got from those focus group discussions. It was, as you can imagine, obviously from the range of children and organizations and countries and contexts that we received, it was such a mix. But just to kind of pull out some of the key things that we saw from those focus group discussions, as well as the kind of maybe expecting negative consequences that you might expect from not belonging around lack of basic needs being met, access to food, a safe place to sleep and clothing, harassment and abuse, a lack of freedom, police brutality. We also saw a real focus on access, so services, in particular healthcare and education, and lack of legal ID kind of being a real barrier to accessing these services, which, as I said, Mia Dambak will speak to a bit more later on. But I think one of the things that actually came out the strongest from the discussions, and one commonality across all of the feedback that we received from the focus group discussions on the theme of belonging, is the kind of uniqueness of each child's individual experience of what makes them feel as though they belong. And as I said, the variety in the responses, but also at the same time, the unifying desire to be accepted as part of a community and to feel like they belong in a community was something that came out really strong in most of the focus group discussion feedbacks that we got. So, being involved in decision making, having opinions listened to, not just having decisions made for them by adults, being able to connect with others, being part of a group, having friends who provide support when in need. So this sense of connection and the support structure that children create and build when on the streets, and the kind of draw strength from that was something that came up a lot as well, looking out for each other, helping each other when someone needs food or if someone's unwell, came up a lot from the discussions. Being recognized and being known, and kind of having unconditional love and understanding, all kind of fed into this idea of acceptance and participation and just being recognized as an active member of the community and a valued member of the community, was something that was a common theme across all of the focus group discussions that we got. And then we kind of, looking at all of the feedback that we received, we based this year's 5 key messages on those. So the first one, really, that every street connected child should be able to feel a sense of belonging as a fundamental human experience, something that everybody desires, but the ways in which we achieve those are really unique to us, what makes us feel as though we belong. The negative consequences and effects of not belonging that a street connected child can experience. The ways in which we need to kind of take time to listen to and understand what gives street connected children a sense of belonging. It's going to be different across groups, across contexts, countries. So rather than kind of assuming that we know, we need to listen to children and understand what it is that makes them feel as though they belong. Children on the streets creating their own support networks that must be respected. this, the strength and bonds amongst peer groups that, that children will create is something that is really valued by them and that we need to kind of respect. And then lastly, legal identity, providing a vital first step in helping street connected children feel that they belong. So all of those key messages were drawn out from what we'd received from the focus group discussions, and I think nicely kind of represent everything that we received and have continued to hear from organisations that are still running the discussions. So I'll stop there, and just before I hand over to Boki, I just wanted to end on a couple of quotes that we got from some of the focus group discussions that I thought really nicely kind of highlighted the theme. So the first one is, belonging means I matter to the people, and belonging to me is when I have people to share my problems and successes with. And we got lots of quotes, but those two just really stood out to me, and I wanted to share them with everyone. So I'll hand over to Boki, who's our first speaker.
Wow, thank you, Jess. You spoke so eloquently that makes me feel very shy and nervous. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not eloquent as you are, but I'll try my best. Noting that I also have past connections in the street. So I hold some street vices that actually will hang on to me for quite some time. This year's theme is belonging. And belonging in itself, it's so huge that bisecting it to get the correct meaning at times would bring complications or misunderstandings. I've worked with street children for almost 30 years, having started working with street children in Nairobi sometimes back in 1988, and having worked in Mombasa with street children from almost 1993. What I want to say is that the issue of street children is dynamic. The context of street children in Mombasa cannot be the same as the context of street children in Nairobi or in Kisumu or in Eldoret, the cities in Kenya, as compared to the context of street children in Calcutta or in other parts of the world. I'll speak mostly on the street children in Mombasa because I've worked with street children in Mombasa for a very long time. At the moment, Mombasa is experiencing third generation of street children. And I'm happy to have worked with children in all these three generations. Children being in the street confuses lots of things in their life. Their life gets mixed up in so many ways. Children run from home and go to the street because of different factors, including neglect, abuse, death of parents, separation. But once they get themselves into the street, they actually miss the belonging. They miss belonging in this context. The government or the public don't want them in the street. Though they feel that the street is better option than the situation at home, they encounter some
We lost you there, Boki. The connection's cutting out a little bit. Maybe if you try turning your camera off, and I think that worked a bit better earlier.
in the street, making to a certain group in the street, that locality, but the gender, they should be there. So their belonging hangs some characters and habits. For example, they'll start food for necessity to stay healthy and but those people in that area do not accept them. So they fight for their belonging there. They fight the public who do not want them there, and they fight the government who do not want them there. So building a belonging in that place becomes a hurdle. It becomes every day a cat and mouse game. Them running from the public, them running from the police, them running from the inspectorate. So it doesn't give them the identity that we belong here. While they continue staying there, they advanced in age and they miss some aspects in life. Like, for example, this boy is on the street since he's aged 11 or 12, and he's aging up. He comes to an age where he should have a national ID. And because he didn't have academic papers or baptismal card or birth certificate, then he doesn't get this identity card, which means he doesn't even belong to the nation, which is his home, by the virtue of not having an identity card. They don't belong in the society because while the rest of his peers went to school and have academic certificates, he missed out of school. So he doesn't have a belonging of his age mates. While his age mates have the academic qualifications, he doesn't have the academic qualification. So he misses the belonging of his age group. When he leaves home, he misses contact with the family and relatives, which means the belonging of relatives and connections, sibling connection, is also broken down. To some extent, the belonging of this child or this boy or this girl is completely turned upside down. To rewind that, it's like a coil. So rewinding that to make him have a sense of belonging would take lots of resources and time to equip. When they age up, they build relationships on the street, sexual relationships. Maybe it becomes sexual, but that relationship ends up in producing children who also don't have a belonging. They can't trace the roots of their father. They can't trace the roots of their mother because the parents both met on the street. Both parents have no education. Both parents don't have legal identity. So the child, whom now I'm saying is the third generation, lose a sense of belonging. He or she doesn't belong anywhere. He can't, like in Africa or in Kenya, we have tribes. I belong to this tribe. Like I might say, I am a Luo. I belong to the Luo community. This child born in the street does not belong to any community whatsoever. He doesn't know if he's Luo. He doesn't know if he's Kikuyu. He doesn't know if he's Kenyan. He doesn't know if he's Tanzanian. So it's a complete mix. To us in Glad's House, we've tried to reverse this. And we have introduced something called the foster care program. And this came out very well, loud and clear in our meetings with children. We have taken children, we take children from the streets now. And as the government has introduced an alternative care system, we are placing these children in foster families. And we see them grow. They get a belonging. I belong to this family. They are taught morals. They can go to school. I belong to this school. I am a member of this school. It gives that child a belonging. He feels, I belong to this classroom. I belong to this family. These are my people. These are the people who appreciate me. These are the people who take care of me. So to us, conclusion, every child belongs to a family. No child should live on the street. Children belong to families, and families make children strong. Families make children feel responsible. Family teaches children morals. A child who is grown up in the center, because the alternative was to grow children in children's homes, they don't get a belonging there. They are putting together lots of children, like 15, 16, 20. We have some homes even have 50 or so children. They don't get that individual care or family connection. The other thing that we have tried to look at is not to separate siblings. If we get children from the street and we want to put them in a family unit, we put siblings together to show them that they belong in one family. They are siblings, and nobody should separate that. long ago, children used to be separated, and this child is taken to this home, this other child is taken to a different home. They never get a belonging. They never get that bond. They never get that unity. So to us, children belong to families. They don't belong to the street. The street pushes the sense of belonging out of children. To survive on the street, they'll have to acquire some characters that are not possible to wipe out in lifetime. Like, for example, if a child gets arrested all the time while on the street, this child becomes a hardcore, and this child develops characteristics that are usually found in correctional institutions. Those characteristics do not give an identity of belonging. It gives an identity of surviving. I survive in these areas. It is survival, not belonging. Belonging should be in a family. If a child is grown in a family, then that child will also learn to have a family in future and take care of it. Children belong to families. Children do not belong to the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Boki. I think you speak very eloquently, so there's no need to put yourself down. It was really great to hear and really interesting what you were saying at the beginning about the kind of the dynamic and the context specific, even down to different cities, different counties and in countries. It's going to be so different, the experiences that street connected children have. And really nice to hear about the foster care program as well. I know it's something that we're aware of here at CSC, but it's something that's, I think, a really fantastic initiative. So thank you for sharing a bit about that as well. I know, Boki, you wanted to invite any questions briefly from participants. If anyone had anything they wanted to ask Boki about his presentation. Feel free to put something in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself or put your hand up if you want to ask a question.
Maybe just very briefly, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's not really to add to what Boke said, but I found it really, really powerful to acknowledge how normal children have multiple belongings. You belong to your nuclear family, you belong to your extended family, you belong to your, who knows, tribe, you belong to a school and a class in a school, you may belong to your church or your mosque. Whereas, unfortunately, that's not true for the majority of children who live and work on the streets. And I think that's a really powerful notion to always keep in mind. One of the things that I've shared with my colleagues in Amani not too long ago is a quote which I find powerful, though fortunately we don't see that dynamic too much in the children we work with. But that quote reads something like, the child who doesn't feel the warmth of the village will burn the village down. The quote is, the child who doesn't feel embraced by the village will burn the village down to feel its warmth. And I think there is some truth in that. Fortunately, we don't see that too often in the children we work with. Remarkably, they are still reasonably soft-natured and friendly and cooperative and ready to engage. But yes, I think that whole sense of belonging has such psychological impact that we should not underestimate.
Thank you, Minder. Thank you for your comments in the chat as well. Really nice to see. And thank you everyone else for commenting. As I said, there will be a Q&A at the end. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask Boki I think in the interest of time, we'll move on, and I'll hand over to Ishika Shaw, who's one of the street champions in Calcutta, supported by Cine. So I'll hand over to you, Ishika.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, everyone. My name is Ishika, and I'm a street champion, and I'm from India. जैसे कि मतलब हम लोग कभी भी कोई भी स्ट्रीट या फिर स्ट्रीट कनेक्टेड चिल्ड्रंस का बात करते हैं तो हमेशा नेगेटिव परसेप्शन आता है, जैसे कि वो बच्चा सिर्फ चोरी करता है या फिर भीख मांगता है या फिर वो बच्चा कुछ नहीं कर सकता। हम लोग सिर्फ यही सोचते हैं।
Hello everyone, my name is Shantam. I'm interpreting on behalf of Ishika. So what she just said is, whenever we speak about street connected children or children living on street, the negative perception comes first. They used to stolen things, they used to fight, so they are creating nuisance. So these sort of things comes into our mind first. Over to Ishika.
हम लोगों को बिल्कुल भी अच्छा नहीं लगता था जब वो लोग मतलब हम लोगों का बात नहीं सुनते थे, हम लोगों का बात को वैल्यू नहीं देते थे। हम लोगों को बहुत ही खराब लगता था क्योंकि वो लोग हम लोगों को मतलब एक पार्टिसिपेशन हम लोगों का राइट्स है, वो हम लोगों को पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करने देते थे, हम लोगों को वो जगह से एक्सक्लूड कर देते थे। तो हम लोगों को लगता था कि हम लोग मतलब एक सोसाइटी का पार्ट नहीं है, हम लोगों को बहुत खराब फील होता था।
So at that moment, we felt very bad because we felt excluded from participating anywhere, any activities. So they used to feel bad about that things.
और उसके बाद मतलब जब हम लोग जहाँ पर रहते हैं, हम लोग को जो प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए जो स्टेक होल्डर्स लोग हैं, जैसे कि ICDS, पुलिस ऑफिसर्स, काउंसलर्स, वो लोग मतलब पहले हम लोगों का बात को सुना नहीं जाता था, पहले हम लोगों का बात को वैल्यू नहीं दिया जाता था। पर हम लोगों का धीरे धीरे सोसाइटी चेंज हो रहा है और वो लोग हम लोगों का बात सुन रहे हैं। हम लोग उन लोग के साथ मिलके उनका जो सर्विसेज है, उन लोगों का सर्विसेज में हम लोग हेल्प करते हैं उन लोगों को।
So things gradually changed. Earlier, the duty bearers doesn't help them. They didn't listen to them. So police, counselors, ICDS workers, they don't used to listen to them. But things gradually have changed now, and they are now putting their points forward, and they are working together with the duty bearers.
जैसे कि आईसीडीएस में जैसे जो बच्चे लोग जाके पढ़ते हैं, हम लोग वो बच्चे लोगों को उधर पर एनरोल करवाते हैं, उन लोगों को मिड डे मील मिल रहा है, वो हम लोग इंश्योर करते हैं कि उन लोगों को मिड डे मील मिले। और फिर जो बच्चे जैसे एडोलेशन जो गर्ल्स है, वो लोग को भी हम लोग मीटिंग पे लेके जाते हैं कि उन लोगों को भी हेल्थ हाइजीन और फिर जो हम लोगों का जो भी मीटिंग्स होता है वो सब वो लोग अटेंड करें।
So as a street champion, they are used to take the beneficiaries to the ICDS centers so that they get midday meals. They used to help the Anganwadi workers so that they can get connected to the beneficiaries. That way, they are actually helping the service providers to get in touch with the beneficiaries.
और फिर जैसे कि पुलिस ऑफिसर्स लोग, पुलिस अंकल लोग जो लोग होते हैं, पहले हम लोगों को बहुत जन को पुलिस अंकल लोग से, सिर्फ हम लोगों को नहीं, सभी बच्चे लोगों को जो लोग स्ट्रीट पे रहते हैं वो लोग पुलिस अंकल लोगों को देखकर भाग जाते थे, उन लोगों से बहुत ही डर लगता था सभी बच्चे लोगों को। पर अभी हम लोगों का कनेक्शन इतना, बॉन्डिंग हम लोगों का इतना स्ट्रांग है कि हम लोग तो अभी कोई भी प्रॉब्लम लेके वो अंकल लोग के पास जाने से वो लोग सब कोई का प्रॉब्लम साइड में रख के पहले हम लोगों का बात को वैल्यू देते हैं, हम लोगों का बात सुनते हैं अच्छे तरीके से और फिर मतलब तुरंत ही एक्शन लेते हैं। और हम लोग जानते हैं मतलब बच्चे लोग सोचते हैं कि बच्चे लोग अकेले जाके पुलिस स्टेशन में कंप्लेन नहीं कर सकते, वो लोग सोचते हैं कि मतलब कोई हम लोगों के साथ कोई अडल्ट या फिर कोई बड़ा होगा तभी हम लोग जाकर कंप्लेन कर सकते हैं। पर हम लोगों का मतलब वैसा नहीं है, हम लोग खुद जाके कंप्लेन करते हैं और जो पुलिस अंकल लोग रहते हैं वो लोग तुरंत ही हम लोगों का बात सुनते हैं और एक्शन लेते हैं।
For example, of police, earlier, all the street connected children have a fear about reaching out to the police officers. But now it is not like that. They felt they can individually approach to the police officers. Earlier, their perception was that without an adult, they cannot approach to a police officer. But they can come to the police officer by themselves, and things are getting changed now. So police officers also now provide giving the priority to this child whenever they reach to them with some complaint.
और फिर जैसे कि काउंसलर जो है, हम लोग सब जो बच्चे लोगों का डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं है, वो डॉक्यूमेंट्स की वजह से वो बच्चे का स्कूल में एनरोलमेंट नहीं हो रहा है, तो हम लोग वो सब बच्चे लोगों का नाम लिखकर काउंसलर अंकल के पास जाकर उनसे मतलब जो लेटर लिखाना पड़ता है स्कूल का एडमिशन के लिए, तो वो अंकल मतलब तुरंत ही हम लोगों को अप्रोच कर देते हैं, मतलब लिख कर, मतलब वो इतना हेल्प करते हैं हम लोगों को कि वो तुरंत लेटर वेटर लिख कर उन लोगों को, हम लोग वही हेल्प से हम लोग स्कूल में एनरोलमेंट करवाते हैं, या फिर बहुत सारा बैंक का डॉक्यूमेंट्स, बैंक का अकाउंट, ये सब नहीं बन पाता है, तो वो सब हेल्प से उन लोगों का बैंक का डॉक्यूमेंट्स या फिर कुछ भी सरकारी गवर्नमेंट का डॉक्यूमेंट्स होता है वो सब बन जाता है.
For examples, they are now connected with the counselors. So many things the street children cannot afford, these services cannot access due to the absence of documents. So they are listing down the name of the children, and they are reaching out to the counselor for a base document like birth certificate, for residential certificates like that. Those documents that will help them in future to have a bank account like that. So and getting admission to the schools. So they prepared the list of such children, those who need this kind of support, and they reached out to the counselor with the list, and this counselor listened to them and take the required action so that these children get the document that so that with that document they can access the services that are due to them. So that way they are connected with the counselors also.
और काउंसलर के बाद यूपीएससी, जो बच्चे लोगों का तबीयत खराब रहता है उन लोगों को यूपीएससी में जाकर रेफर करना, जो बच्चे लोग यूपीएससी जाने नहीं मांगते उन लोग, वो बच्चे लोगों को समझाकर यूपीएससी लेके जाना, फिर ये सब करते हैं हम लोग. फिर जो बच्चे लोग मतलब मीटिंग में आते हैं, जो हम लोग इतना बात करते हैं आज, और हम लोग जो जानते हैं वो सब हम लोग जो बच्चे लोगों को बताना चाहते हैं वो बच्चे लोग भी वो सीखे. तो हम लोग, हाँ, स्ट्रीट में रहने का बहुत ही प्रॉब्लम भी है, जैसे कि आप लोग स्ट्रीट मतलब समझ ही रहे हैं कि स्ट्रीट में बहुत स्पेस का प्रॉब्लम होता है, तो हम लोग मीटिंग सही तरीके से कंडक्ट नहीं कर पाते क्योंकि हम लोगों के पास एक प्रॉपर स्पेस नहीं है. तो हम लोग एक जो स्कूल है, तो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स है, तो उनसे हेल्प लेकर, उधर के जो टीचर्स लोग हैं हम लोग उनसे भी कनेक्ट है, वो जब भी हम लोगों का कुछ भी मीटिंग होता है तो हम लोग उनसे हेल्प लेकर हम लोग वो स्कूल में अपना मीटिंग कंडक्ट करते हैं.
So it is like with the help of these children, they are actually referring the other children, their peers, to the nearest UPHCs where they can get the health facilities. So even the outreach workers for the health departments, they are taking these children's help to reach out the beneficiaries. So they are helping them in immunization and all that activities. And what Ishika said, that due to the space crunch at the street, they cannot conduct meetings properly. So they approach to the school, local schools, and they ask for this space there, and the teacher of the local school allowed them to conduct the peers meeting at the school premises. Over to Ishi.
और हम लोग जो अभी काम करते हैं, हम लोगों को एक सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग फील होता है कि हम लोग भी, वी आर ऑल्सो अ पार्ट ऑफ आवर सोसाइटी. तो हम चाहते हैं कि जैसे हम लोग एक लाइक वी हैव क्रिएटेड अ सोसाइटी, मतलब जैसे हम लोग जो क्रिएट किया अपना एनवायरनमेंट हम लोगों के पास में, जो हम लोग का स्टेक होल्डर्स लोग हैं, हम लोग ऐसा एक ये क्रिएट किया है कि जब भी हम लोगों को कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम हो वो लोग हम लोगों के साथ खड़े हो. तो हम लोगों का जो हक है वो हम लोगों को मिल रहा है। और हम ये चाहते हैं कि जैसे कि और भी बहुत सारे बच्चे लोग हैं। पहले हम लोगों को भी ऐसा फील होता था कि हम लोग एक सोसाइटी का पार्ट नहीं है, पर अभी हम लोग फील कर सक रहे हैं कि हम लोग एक सोसाइटी के पार्ट है, और वो लोग हम लोगों का बात बहुत अच्छे तरीके से सुन रहे हैं। तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि जैसे कि और भी जो बच्चे लोग एक्सक्लूडेड है वो लोग को हम लोग इंक्लूड करें अपने सोसाइटी के अंदर में, और वो लोग का भी बात अच्छे से सुना जाए। हम लोगों का जो राइट्स है, जो हम लोग एंजॉय कर पा रहे हैं, अभी के जो बच्चे लोग हैं, हम लोग जो एज के बच्चे लोग हैं, हम लोग जो एंजॉय कर रहे हैं, और भी सभी सारे बच्चे लोग एंजॉय कर रही है राइट्स को।
So what she is saying basically that we now they are feeling much more engaged, and they are feeling a sense of belonging. So they are feeling that they are also the part of the society, and they are it is their right, and they are enjoying their right. Besides, Isika said that she also felt that they are enjoying their childhood. They are like her. There are a lot more children who are on the street, and they also must be hard, and they must also be have the right to enjoy their childhood days. So it is her appeal that the other children on street like her who are not enjoying like her must also be get the chance to enjoy her life, their life. I mean, childhoods.
तो मेरा बस यही कहना था कि जैसे कि हम लोग इतना हम लोग हर राइट्स को एंजॉय कर पा रहे हैं, वैसे सभी बच्चे लोग करें। और सब कोई सोचता है कि स्ट्रीट के बच्चे लोग कुछ नहीं कर सकते, पर हम हम यहाँ पर बैठे हैं तो तो सभी, जैसे हम यहाँ पर बैठे हैं वैसे और भी सारे बच्चे लोग यहाँ पर आगे आके अपना बात बोल सके, वो लोग को वैसा मौका मिले, वैसा चांस मिले, वो लोग को एक्सक्लूड ना किया जाए, वो लोग को हमेशा सब चीज में, हर एक चीज में वो लोग को पार्टिसिपेट करने दिया जाए। तो उन लोगों को भी एक सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग फील होगा। और क्योंकि हम लोग भी वो दौर से गुजर चुके हैं, तो हम लोगों को पता है कि वो कैसा फील होता है।
Just like me sitting here presenting my case, so other children must get this chance to speak their points, put their points forward. So as I have gone through that phase, I know how it felt as an excluded child. So other child who are not enjoying the rights like me, so they must get a chance to raise their voice and represent in platforms like this.
पहले जैसे पहले हम लोगों को भी कोई नहीं पहचानता था, पर हम लोग अपना अपना हम लोगों के पास इतना शक्ति है, हम लोगों के पास ये हम लोग इतना अच्छा बोल सकते हैं कि हम लोग, जैसे हम लोग का एक ग्रुप है स्ट्रीट चैंपियंस का, अभी पूरे बहुत जगह में इंसान लोग हम लोगों को पहचानते हैं एज अ स्ट्रीट चैंपियन। तो आगे भी अगर बहुत बच्चे लोगों को मौका मिलेगा तो वो भी ये सब प्लेटफॉर्म में आके वो लोग बात कर सकते हैं, और वो लोग को भी अपना पहचान खुद का मिलेगा।
We are now regarded as street champions. So many people recognized us as a street champion. So if the other people, other children get the same opportunity like me, they can also work as a street champion, and they can earn a recognition as a street champion and put their points forward like me.
And lastly, that this is the world of us, and we belong from this society only like others do. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ishika. There's so much there in terms of the work that you've been doing to build all of those relationships, with the police, with the counsellors, with the schools, letting you use the space for your meetings. And it's so clear to see the positive impact that's had on you and then peers that you're working with. It's such a fantastic initiative, and I'm so pleased that you were able to share with us today. Thank you so much. And I know your peers are with you in the room as well. So thank you to everyone for joining, especially on a national holiday. It was really fantastic to hear about all the work that you're doing as a street champion. I'm going to hand over next to Mia, who's going to speak briefly to Legal ID. And then, as I said, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if anyone's got any questions for Ishika, then we can have those at the end. I'm sure there'll be lots.
Thanks for that, Jessica. And also well done to Ishika and all the other street champions there. I think that the word champion is the perfect adjective to describe your work and to describe you as young people changing this world. So I've been asked to talk to you about belonging and the right to identity. And it's a real pleasure for me to be here with you to speak just ahead of the International Day for Street Children on tomorrow. So if we just go to the next slide, what I think is really important to understand, and which has come through from what Boki has spoken about as well as Ishika, is that identity facilitates belonging. And that identity, for me, has really two pillars. There's the legal identity, but there's also the psychosocial part of an identity. And I find it really helpful from UNHCR that has this definition in their best interest procedure guidelines. So when they're working with refugees, with people who are stateless, with children on the move, from a psychosocial perspective, belonging for them and having an identity is the feeling of being wanted and valued, which is the basis of a healthy emotional life. It's rooted in family relations. But then as a person matures and grows, it becomes increasingly larger circles. And so that identity and that belonging is ever changing, but it's really important that you have that belonging and you have that identity to belong and to mature and to have that mental health. But now, if we go to the next slide, the work that we are focusing on as part of child identity protection, we work on the psychosocial part, but really we also work on the legal identity, which is based on Articles 7 and 8 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but also as an international community, we've all agreed for 2030 that we're going to have a legal identity for every person, for every child, which will include having a birth certificate. The reason why legal identity is so important is because it's the first time that the state formally recognizes an individual as existing, as being visible, as belonging. And in practice, that means that civil registration and vital statistics systems have to be in place to register the child, to make sure that they have a birth certificate, to make sure that they have this identity. Despite this international agreement and these international norms, we know that civil registration and vital statistics systems are can be inaccessible, they can be costly, and they can be weak and not sufficiently resourced. So that results in the 237 million children under 5 not having a birth certificate. 48% of those children alone in West and Central Africa under the age of 1 are not registered, don't have a birth certificate. And the reasons can be many, but some of them across the world can also be related to discrimination that Boki had already mentioned before. It's because you need a marriage certificate to register the child. It can only be a male that can register the child, or for many other reasons. If we go to the next slide. So lacking a legal identity, what I'd like to focus on today, which both Boki and Ishika both spoke about, means that it can be an obstacle to having an education. And we know how important having an education is to ensure that you belong to society and to ensure that you have a future. So if we look at Western Central Africa alone, if you don't have a birth certificate in many of these countries that I've mentioned, you either can't register at school, so enter primary school, or you can't sit exams, and you can't progress in your education. So you can't sit your exams from primary school to high school, or you can't get the high school certificate. So it really is an obstacle, but fortunately there are solutions. There are many initiatives. There are initiatives like the one that Boki mentioned that he's working on with alternative care, but also Ishika and her street champions, but also with UNICEF. They've got this fantastic campaign that they just had started in January for the African Cup of Nations, which I absolutely love. It's this video which talks about my name is identity and my dreams. So basically, if you don't have a birth certificate, you can't go to school, You can't join a football club. You can't then represent your country. Then you can't achieve your dreams. And then you are therefore excluded in so many ways because you don't have a legal identity. In terms of the work that we're doing in Senegal at the moment, we're working with the government to strengthen a protocol that they have, which I think should probably be replicated in many other countries. It's where if you're at school, you don't have a birth certificate, there's a mobile court system that moves to the school and they register the children at the school. So they go to the school and it means that because many parents understand the importance of having a birth certificate, but they don't understand necessarily the importance of having a birth certificate, but they do understand the importance of having an education. So it's really a good way to twin the system. And this work in Senegal is now going to be expanded to reach Quranic schools, but also it's called a bridging system for children that aren't in the school. So children that are living on the street that aren't necessarily at school, where they are going to move this mobile court system to capture these marginalized groups of children. So I think that there are many opportunities that exist for us to ensure that we should, that no child is left behind and every child belongs. And I'm really excited to see that the Consortium for Street Children and all your partners are working to make sure that really every child belongs and is included. Thanks.
Thank you, Mia. I really like that link that you made at the beginning of kind of identity facilitates belonging. It's kind of a precursor and something that's kind of channels into everything else. And also the idea of visibility, like it makes people visible to the state that are otherwise invisible and unnoticed and therefore can't access any of those essential services, especially the kind of education piece that you spoke about. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm going to hand over now to Pia, who's going to facilitate our Q&A. As I said before, you can ask questions to any of the speakers. Feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand and unmute yourself, and you can ask a question in person, but I'll hand over to you, Pia.
Thank you. Thanks, Jess. And thanks to all our speakers. What a fantastically rich discussion. Amazing. And it's just wonderful to be with everybody today. It's amazing seeing lots of friends' names popping up in the participants. And I just want to say a big thanks to the organizations who contributed to those focus groups that Jess talked about, that helped shape the messages for International Day for Street Children. And just thinking back over what we've just covered over the last 45 minutes. I mean, Jess talked about the 5 messages that we put out for International Day for Street Children. Boki, who is indeed extremely eloquent, don't ever say you're not eloquent, Boki, I think really reminded us of kind of deeply contextual nature, which came out in those focus groups of belonging and working with street connected children more generally. But I think Boki just really captured that cost of not belonging. What is the cost to a child? And then, you know, as Meinhardt used that brilliant quote about the village or to the society of not making sure that a child belongs and feels their belonging. And then Ishika moved us through to these incredibly hopeful, Ishika, just wonderful, your hopeful examples of how we can turn it around in practical ways with children being part of the solution, working to ensure access to services, working to ensure that they work with their fellow peers to create that sense of belonging, and all the practical examples. And Ishika, I loved your final quote, just saying, we belong to the society like other people do. Thank you. And Mia, just so helpful to get that kind of like 30,000 foot from a kind of perspective of legal identity, but always keeping in the frame that it's legal identity, but it's also about psychological sense of belonging. And there's 2 bookends in a way of thinking about belonging. So thank you for that rich discussion. I can see we've already got a hand up from Kenya, from Malingaleru, who I think is in Kakuma, if I remember rightly. Malingaleru, do you want to come in with your question? And then I think Kushbu has a question. Can you hear me, Malingaleru? Are you coming off mute? I can hear some
Hello.
crackling. Hi, we can hear you. Welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you very much. I'm glad that I'm in the forum today. And thank you once again for the wonderful theme that we have for this year. So I want just to share brief things and then to ask a question. I think just let me introduce because I know majority don't know me. I'm Langaliro from Refugee Voice and Action, and we are based in Kenya, especially Kakuma refugee camp, where we are based, and we are helping refugees to understand and realize their rights in Kakuma and Kalubeye. So thank you very much. I want to share this view by saying that clearly we have street children who are in Kakuma and Kalubeye, and the point that we are trying to say about belonging, this is an issue that maybe can help, because when we found these children, they are not belonging to any side of the society or the organizations in Kakuma. I'm talking especially to Kakuma and Kalubeye, where we are based, because we have to say that because we Refugee Voice and Action, we are a team of refugees who want to help our fellow refugees. So these people, they are not belonging to any side of the society, because we have many organizations that are operating in Kakuma and Kalubeye, but we don't have any organization that have come up and talk about street children. So in this point, we don't know. We as a team of refugees, we are here just to advocate for their right. We are here to advocate for their right, but we don't have that capacity to do what? To make sure that they are getting their right. Because when we talk about belonging, is the way of getting their right, where these street children can get their right. So you will find that these children, they don't have opportunity to health care, to food security, to clean water, to education. Those services that are provided, they don't have this opportunity to get them. So my point or my suggestion to everyone, because I know that and I believe really that the whole world is getting me and they can think about this. Okay, even if we are doing something to help or to support the street children, but we are not able to do something for them, we can do the little one according to our level. According to our level, because we are just a community-based organization, we can do just a little to help them, but we don't have that full capacity to help these street children. So everywhere you are, I think you understand this by saying, please look a way forward to help these children who are in Kakuma and Kalubeye. Because nowadays, if you follow the information that are now present in Kakuma, we have so many groups of gangs. Those are the children who used to form group and attack people, maybe in the road. They just steal their things. They just kill people just anyhow by thinking that they can get something from those people. So this is the situation that is happening in Kakuma and Kalubeye. At this moment I'm speaking, so we don't have that capacity as a Refugee Voice and Action, but to everyone who could do at least think and have maybe way to link us or to just say, I think
Thank you, Mligalero. That's great. So I think a passionate call for more support to street connected children in Kakuma. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. I'm going to keep going because I'm aware we're short of time. Kushbu, I think you've got something you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think more than asking, thank you so much. And it was lovely to hear from everybody. And thank you, Ishika, aapne jo share kiya, it was very heartening. I think with my work with children connected with the streets, we do know that, yes, there are so many children who are without support, and organizations like present in this room have been of great help and support for them. And Mia, thank you for bringing up the point about legal identity, because that is absolutely important. And you see children on the streets, people living on the streets, constantly vying for that legal document that gives them the recognition. But at the same time, I saw a lot of children negotiating their legal identity in terms of age, right? And that negotiation that children do is also very important to remember, that sometimes they didn't want a document that said that they are above 18, and they constantly negotiated their ages in the documents. But when we talk about children and belonging, we also have to remember that there are families that children choose on the street, and they feel the belonging. While in our domain of protecting children, we have started to call the families that children choose protective abusers. But that's our viewpoint from the other side. But for children, that is the sense of belonging that they have. And I think we constantly miss this point in our protectionist regime, in our funding project regime, that there are certain children who feel more belong to families that we do not approve of and we see as abusers. But it's also extremely important to keep remembering that. Thank you.
Thanks, Khushbu. Yes, I think two really important points. I was talking to somebody recently about juvenile children in the juvenile justice system in Pakistan, and this issue of age and negotiating age was hugely important for obvious reasons about where the children were incarcerated. So it's something that was echoed recently. And your second point about this issue around where children feel their belonging is when we disapprove. That was a big theme of the work that came out of the Women and Girls Working Group that we've supported, with kind of carers realizing they couldn't just make the decision themselves about which belonging relationships were healthy or unhealthy. That it was much more nuanced and subtle than that. Are there any more questions? I'm aware we've got this wonderful group of street champions in Kolkata on a bank holiday or an Indian holiday. Are there any questions to our street champions in Kolkata, all of Ishika's colleagues? Or any other questions for Boki or for Mia or for Ishika herself? Or any other points anyone wants to make? I can see some people coming on camera. Come and join us with a thought. Great, Bekele, I can see your hand up. Wonderful. And I can see Bishnu would like to ask a question to you. Go first, Bekele.
Okay, thank you. This is my first time to join this group. I am Brother Bekele from Salesians of Don Bosco, Ethiopia. And we are working here in Addis, working for street boys. And the fact that I am on my 7th year in this project working, I'm the dean of the school. And the basic reality of the street in Addis is mainly, I just put it in two. One is searching for, I do say that boys in the street do have a vision. More than belongingness, they have a vision. Because going out from their family, they are searching for a better life, a better employment, and a better self-sustainability of helping their dear ones. And mostly they are coming from rural areas, and they find on the way different exposures of addictions, and they are always rejected by the society because as they live on the streets, there is no one who can take responsibility of themselves. And the other one is searching for love. Love means in the sense of family, the ones who can take care of them. And as a result of broken families, single parenthood, and absolute poverty, they go out because we go to each boy's family for family visit before reintegration to search out why the boy is on the street and what would be the solution in order to get into the family network. Therefore, when the parents meet us, they always tell us that they don't have anything to do for their boy. and mainly no education, no food, no basic necessity. So the child is obliged to go by any means to urban areas. And Addis is expected to have more than 60,000 street boys in the street. And every evening, I and my colleague go out to the streets in order to see their situation and start to recruit and visit them on the spot. And for those who are interested to join our group, we will give them an appointment for the morning. And every morning a bus goes all over the town and gets into, and they start a daycare program, and we call it a CAM NC program. And before joining us, we give them a month of two to come and go. We don't pick them at once so that they don't reach for a decision to remain in our center. So for that, once they join to our compound, they start to feel belongingness to the project, belongingness to, because why I say searching for love is when they come here and get what one has to get from his family, they start to show their interest. And based on their interest, we admit them here from 1 year up to 3 years. And according to the study that they would like to join, after taking 8 months of orientation to 8 departments or 8 fields, they choose. And later, about the legality, we had problems because no one was giving them ID card, and having an agreement with sector bureaus of Addis, and they allowed us, after having supporting letter about them, they were having a bank account opened, and every boy starts to join, to enjoy his legal identity. Nowadays, the government started another system of having a national ID. So it is electronic ID, and everyone can go, even a street boy can go there. So by the virtue of this opportunity, even our boys from our center, before they join, before they are unified to the society, we get them this national ID, so that for job placement of our boys becomes a good support. And even companies that are in relation to our school, they are enjoying also this support, so that after being with us, most of them, almost 90%, they are successful. And beyond that, nowadays, those who are here, beneficiaries, nowadays they are coming every Friday as guest speakers to speak for the ones who are now. And this is what I can share. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Bekele. Some great insights from Ethiopia. And it strikes me, you know, I think Boki spoke so powerfully to the need to think about each individual child in each context. But I think also listening to Bekele, there's such a lot of common themes that do cross over jurisdictions. Bishnu, you had a hand up. I can't see you now. Are you still there? Yeah. Bishnu and Meinhard, just really quickly, because we need to finish off and I need to let people get on with their days, but I want to make sure. So both of you, just quickly, whatever points you want to make, and then
I do very quickly. Thank you very much for this opportunities, and it's really nice to see you all guys in one platform. So, and I want to congratulate these champions and Stika as well, because you're able to face these things around the globes, and then you make your life better than others. And then there are so many things have to make change, and then we wish to have same life that you are living now. And then in the context of Nepal, it's not so far from India, not so far from the Africas. Boka's already shared about some things, and I have visited sometimes there in Kenya as well. They are doing very great jobs. So in Nepal, so all the children, they come on the street is the last stage of their surviving period, because if they have no other choice, then they choose the street. And then they feel that there will be so many opportunities that they can be protected or be safe. But in the same times, when they choose the street for the last stage, they lost their everything. So, and then they will be nowhere. You know, we are talking about the belonging. So they just cut off from the societies. And then sometimes when we make something different, we are trying to make some different, but not talking with them. We have to make conversation, discussion with them, because like that CSC is doing, making champions and then keeping those champions on the street back, and then try to take them back in a safe place, because it's very hard to leave street because they have so many behaviors and then mental challenges as well. And then by which it's very tough work and tough task to come out with a beautiful, positive belongingness. So we must keep trying and keep working very hard. And then I would like to very humble to these champions, and then I would like to learn a lot of things from the CSC, because we are doing so many coordination part with the CSC and then doing collaboration. So it's very nice, and I'm really thankful for the CSC that you create these webinars for the discussions and then for the sharings. And thank you very much for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. Lovely words from Kathmandu. Really appreciated. Mindheart, last words from you before we close up.
Thank you, Pia. I'll try and keep it short as well. So one of the things I would like to stress is when it comes to this whole notion of belonging and identity, the importance of early interventions to try and reach out to children who have just recently come to the street, and try to do whatever we can to motivate them to leave the streets behind again. Because I think the problem is not just that the children do not belong to our, let's say, normal society, but I think the additional problem is that the longer children stay on the street, they build identities and belonging to this sort of alternative society. And I've worked with street children for 30 years now in India and Tanzania and a couple of other places. And I've heard so many of these children say, but our world is different. It's in our world, it's normal to have sex and unprotected sex when you're 13. In our world, it's okay to steal. In our world, yes, lots of people may get HIV or get imprisoned or whatever. This is our world. And I think that's the danger that is there, that the longer children are on the streets, the more they will feel that this is our world and it's different from the rest of society. And I think all of us would love these children ultimately to become, as even governments acknowledge, contributing members of society. But you can't keep them out of regular society and keep them in this alternative society for long, and then expect them to ultimately be positively contributing members of regular society again. So yeah, early intervention and trying to do whatever we can to stop them sliding into this alternative identity and sense of belonging is really important.
Thank you, Mindheart. And I think really you and Boki have both talked to kind of early intervention, what a long-term being on the street, the impacts of that. And I think at the same time, you know, these words from Khushbu and others around how do we at the same time listen properly to the really important belonging that children may have to networks that they've created on the street. How do we balance that? And that's a really challenging, gnarly issue to finish on. Just, I think, a really inspiring session today. Again, a huge thank you. Thank you to all the street champions who've joined us from Kolkata. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Ishika, who spoke up on their behalf. Thank you to our other speakers. So to Mia, thank you to Boki, the most eloquent Boki, and thank you, Jess, for all the work that you've put in to kind of do the workshops and to get International Day for Street Children going. And thank you to all the participants. Have a brilliant International Day for Street Children tomorrow. And let's hope that we keep awareness on these important issues. Thank you all.
Cheers, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.